Sirens, Slammers, and Service, a podcast for female first responders by female first responders. My name is Nikki Clucci, and I will be your host. As a former correctional officer in Alberta for almost 2 decades and the founder of Blue Line Fitness Testing, which provides law enforcement fitness testing and first responder wellness workshops, I started this podcast as a way for female first responders to share the trials, tribulations, and triumphs of their daily work. I want to showcase the unique perspectives, skill sets, and personalities that women bring to a first responder career and share their stories. So get ready to laugh your ass off, learn a whole bunch, and be inspired by some pretty badass women. Let's go. Welcome back, guys. We are here with another freaking amazing episode of Sirens, Slammers, and Service. Today, I am joined by a soul sister that I legit have not actually met in person, but we've just been talking, and I feel like this would be one of my BFFs for life. I am joined today by Daisy VanRavenswaay from Edmonton Fire. Daisy has been with them for 6 years. Previously was a forester in California, has an absolutely insane story, an insane journey into fire. Can't wait to hear it. So welcome, Daisy. How are you today?
I'm great, Nikki. Thanks for having me on the show, and hello, everyone.
I'm so pumped about this. So again, this Daisy was, her name was password to me from a friend that I used to work with in corrections. And he said, she is so cool. She's definitely one that you need on this podcast. And I was like, okay, cool. Let me stalk her on Instagram. And so then I started following you, but I was a little bit like, I'm not just going to like follow and then immediately ask. So I followed you for a little bit. And then I was like, okay, I think I'm going to do it. I'm just going to put my big girl panties on. I'm going to reach out and be like, hey, do you want to do this? And you were awesome. You replied right back. You're like, yeah, sure, for sure. This sounds super cool. So, and I've been watching all the things you do. I'm really excited to hear about your work with Edmonton Fire, just because I see you're doing all these camps with young women. You're doing all these different kind of like school groups and things like that. I think it's just absolutely amazing. So tell me, how did this all start? How did you get into fire? What drove you to this career as a first responder?
When I was a little girl, I had no idea that I could be a firefighter. I thought that I'd become a gym teacher or a police officer. And, that those were my dreams kind of growing up as a kid. I was an athletic kid. Since I was in the 8th grade, I started getting pretty okay at the throwing events. So when I hit high school, universities in the States. And I remember talking to a coach from a university down there, and I told him what I wanted to study. I said, I think I want to be a police officer or a phys ed teacher. And he said, well, we don't have an education program, but we do have a fire science program. Like, there's no way that I could be a firefighter. Like, I can't do that. And I immediately stopped talking to that coach. I was like, this guy does not understand me. There's no way that I would even go to this school. Like, he cannot be my coach. Like, there's no way. It wasn't until like years later, after I graduated university, and I was living in California at the time. So I did my first 2 years at the University of Connecticut, and then I transferred to the University of California at Berkeley and finished off my degree there. And then I loved living there. I lived there for about 9-10 years. But while I was living there, I had the opportunity to meet some of the firefighters from San Francisco. And it was a woman named Julie. And she always bugged me. She's like, Dave, I think you should come to the station and just see what we do. And this is at a time when I graduated university. I think I was working at a speaking bureau at that time. So I was booking like celebrities and keynote speakers for events. And she's like, Daisy, come to the station. I did. And I remember walking into the station and seeing her team and just immediately knowing this is the job for me. Like, they didn't even do anything yet. I just like going on calls. Like, I slid down the fire pole. And their team was like incredibly diverse. I think they had 3 women on their crew. Yeah, and they just seemed to have so much fun together. They had this massive interesting things. And at that time, I was working at a job, and yeah, it just didn't feel like it fit with my personality. Like, I wanted to do things like an active job. You're out in the community. It just felt like it fit. And it took me like a bunch of years to kind of work up the courage to actually pursue it. And at that time, I wanted to actually work with the San Francisco Fire Department, but I couldn't because I wasn't a citizen. And I didn't have the residency, and I didn't have the know where or like the resources to even navigate that system. So I had to move back to Canada. if I wanted to kind of pursue this job. Edmonton seemed like it was hiring in all sectors. So for Edmonton, I grew up in Ontario, so I don't know if I told you that in the beginning, but I grew up in a small town in Ontario, middle of nowhere, just outside of Hamilton. But anyway, chose Edmonton, moved here, didn't know anybody, and kind of see what happened. So I put my name in 3 times before I got hired. But it was a journey. It was definitely something that tested me emotionally and physically, because I think once you start identifying this, imagine doing something else when you kind of get defeated the first round and then you have to wait a whole year to kind of reapply. It was really tough. And you start telling people, you want to be a firefighter. So everybody's kind of checking in, like, how is it going? And you're like, you might have news or you might not have news. So that was really challenging. And 2, like, a lot of people, when I told them that I wanted to be a firefighter, even like being a woman who, came from an athletic background, I'm 6'1", some folks, like even people I knew that were in my corner, kind of, gave me funny looks. They're like, do you really want to do this? Like even my own mom, I remember her saying, kind of questioning my thought process around this career, like if it's something that I truly wanted. So that was kind of tough to navigate.
Like you said, that recruitment process, that sitting and waiting is the worst. It's the absolute worst, because you're scared to open your email. You're scared to answer the phone for a phone number that you may or may not know, right? You're like, oh my God, is this it? Are they going to tell me that I'm done? Like, is this the email when it comes up and it says, Edmonton Fire or RCMP or whatever, Solicitor General? You're like, okay, I don't want to open it. I don't want to open it. I don't want to open it. Right. So I know that feeling
100%, yeah.
and it's so drawn out, like most processes, like, because we do the fitness testing, right? Sometimes I get calls from people, they've been in the process for almost 2 years and they're like, Nikki, like, and that's stress, right? And like you said, that, people checking in with you and you're like, thank you for the sport, but stop fucking asking me because you're stressing me out. Like, I'm scared enough as it is by myself. Please stop asking me. No, there's no news. When I get on, I will tell you, right?
Yeah, exactly. And it's funny, especially a job that is kind of intimidating for a job, and you might have these like little hidden, voices that are telling you like, Daisy, will you fit in? Will you actually like this job? Are you going to be good at it? Because you haven't, like, it's not something that you can just go and do and try. Like, it's a job that kind of sits there by itself. You got to get in before you get your feet wet. And so, you're putting all this effort and energy and time and resources to a job that you're like, you might have just these voices that are saying, I don't know if it's going to work out for me.
Yeah. And with fire, I mean, like, you guys already have to have put in a whole bunch of money for specific fire training before you can even apply, right? Whereas like anybody else really applying, you've put in money, you've gone to school, right? But like, usually what you've taken in school will then transpire to other careers, right? So if you took police studies, well, maybe you don't get into police, but you can work in probation, or you can work in another law enforcement career, or you can, utilize some of those arts courses you took in university to, push you forward in a different direction, and you can go back to school. But like fire, it's like you are taking the N1000 course or whatever it is course, that is just to be a firefighter. It is very expensive. It does not transfer over to doing anything else, right? So you're putting those resources and that energy into a very specific pathway, right? And if it doesn't work out, well, that's a very expensive pathway that you went down, right? So I can totally see the doubts and the what happens if I get in it and I don't like it? That's a big thing. Or what happens, like you say, what happens if I get in there and I don't fit in? And it's really hard, or there's people that don't want me here, because again, coming in as a female, that is another aspect. I think it's definitely changing. It's becoming less of a thing to be a female in a first responder career, which is freaking awesome. But there still is that little bit of a, like, as a female, I'm coming into this. I know it's going to be mostly males. Am I going to come up against somebody that doesn't want a female in here? Am I going to come up against somebody who's really sexist and I'm going to have to put up with bullshit every single time I go to work. Right. So yeah, I can totally see that.
I mean, the good thing about Edmonton Fire is that you don't need those specific fire courses. So, I mean, now the recruitment process, you only need an 80-hour advanced first aid course, and then your air breaks upon job offer. But when I was going through it, the process, I ended up taking those level 1 and 2 courses through Vermilion. And I think it cost like $14,000 to do. So you're right. And then because of my options, so like, all around the surrounding, municipalities like St. Albert and Leduc, in Strathcona, I think they require you to have your 1001s, and I think most departments do. So you're right, like you're spending all this money for a really, really narrow pathway. And two, like with Edmonton, I remember when I first applied, the aptitude test, which is one of the first stages of the recruitment process, you were ushered into the big gymnasium at the U of A, and you sat down with everybody writing this aptitude test. Count on one hand the number of women in that room. And like coming from San Francisco, where there was a lot more diversity, like that's just what I expected. Like I was like, I thought there was going to be more women here, but it's going to look and feel a little bit different, in this department specifically. So
crazy. That's so crazy.
I think too, there was a lot of news pieces at that time, I think, that came out of Vancouver about like sexual harassment, Vancouver Fire too. So you're always kind of in the back of your mind, like worrying if you're going to be accepted or not, or like what's going to happen. And then also have this, pretty physically demanding, emotionally taxing job. I didn't have experience like I felt very passionate about and that I wanted to do, and I wanted to be there for the people. But I feel like once you can't really like emulate that in real life, like how you're going to respond to that specifically. So yeah, it's a lot. It felt kind of navigating, all of those thoughts, like overthinking what it's going to feel like.
Yeah. Yeah. And so you said you applied 3 different times. So at what point, do they have a deferral process? So like, oh, you weren't good, so now you can't apply for 6 months or for a year? Or is it just like, no, we're removing from the process, the very next application you can apply again?
Yes, 100%. So the last one. So once you drop off in the recruitment cycle, wherever that may be, you start fresh. You'd have to do the whole thing over again.
Okay. So at what stage were you, at what stage was your struggle at? Was it the same each time, or did you get a little further each time? Or
I laugh, like it's so embarrassing for me to say this, but like when it comes to doing research. So when I came from Ontario, I had this thought that all of this aptitude tests were standardized. So the first year I did it, I wrote Calgary's aptitude test before I wrote Edmonton's. So I thought it was going to be the same test. I was like, I don't have to anyone in that auditorium. And I looked at it and I was like, oh no. This is not the same test. I did need to study. So the first year I didn't make it past the aptitude test. Yeah, that's me and my research. Listening, definitely do your research about every department that you're applying to. Like look at everything. And then the second time I made it past the aptitude and the physical fitness test scores, but at that time your scores and your aptitude test was ranked in the eligibility list, and my scores were not high enough to like move to the interview round. Chalk that up to not being prepared again. Like I had no idea that I would be in the U of A that had like no air conditioning. I was going to be in full bunker gear. I didn't know that I should have trained with a weight gear nose, and that they stick this kind of snorkel thing in your mouth that you had to breathe through. And then you're staring at yourself without any music that you love to kind of like pump it up and do this test. So like I passed it, but it was just like not high enough.
Yeah.
Too of a bummer, but lesson learned.
Yeah.
Hopefully this time. So like the next year I bought a weight vest and kind of committed to more like study more, and then also just train more to do the career.
Yeah, that VO2 max is awful. I had to do it for rugby, and we did it at the Kinsman, and we had the treadmill was like in this little like alcove, and so like behind you was a cement wall, right? And so it was like petrifying because you have the snorkel thing on, you're drooling all over yourself, you're like running, and you're running on an incline, and you're like trying, and it's because it was trying out for Canada, and so it was like you're trying to get the best score you can, right? Because you want to be competitive, you want to be selected, right? And so
Yeah.
you've given everything, slobbering all over the place, can't breathe, like dying. And then also the terror of like, if I actually fall off this treadmill, like I'm smashing into this concrete wall that's behind me. And I was like, I think that this is like, maybe this is motivation, right? Like we gotta hustle. And so I was like,
Yeah.
and I remember coming off of the treadmill, like finally giving like the signal, like I'm gonna fall off, like you need to stop this. And you can't really talk because you have the snorkel thing in your mouth, right? And then like the administrator's just like giving you thumbs up, like you're doing great. And you're like, I feel like I'm dying right now. I don't think I'm doing great, buddy. I don't think I'm doing great. And then you come off and they take the thing off, like the mask off, and it's just like drool and saliva is like hanging in your mouth. You're like, looking awesome right now, real sexy. Like, yes, I was.
That's
Yes,
exactly it. I had the same, saliva experience. It was gross. Yeah.
so gross. Okay, but then so third time is the charm. So third time you are researched, you are physically like at your peak, and you get through this process, which is just exciting. Like, and so beyond the physical fitness, then you're going into the interview stage, and then after that, it's basically job offer.
Still had the station assessment. So I think I don't really remember what came first. I think it was the station assessment. So you pass the physical fitness test, and then I think it was a station assessment. So that they put you somewhere in the city, and then you spent a day with the crew, and they kind of analyze your fit and kind of grade your score about what they think. So I did that portion, and then it was the interview, I think. And then you have in the next class or not. So you're just kind of constantly refreshing your emails over and over and over again.
But you got through, which is awesome. So that's very exciting. What was that like when you got that final email that was like, yep, you're in, like this is it, you're in?
I still remember looking at my phone like it was yesterday and getting that email and not believing that it was true. It was a surreal moment, because it was like all of this hard work that I've prepared for, all of this kind of emotionally, physical, exhausting stuff. Last 3 years, I did it. And, and it's funny because it's like, this is just the beginning. Like it's still, it's only going to get harder in recruit class. But I do remember feeling a sense of relief. It's finally happening. And then so much excitement. And I remember my partner at the time, like throwing a little surprise party for me, which was really amazing. Yeah. It's all of this work into something, your heart and your mind, everything comes together, and then you do it. Yeah. I don't even know if there's words to describe it. Not in the English language there is anyway. Or if there is, I might have to have like an English major or something.
It's true though, like you said, when you look down and it's like, oh my god, especially as like the first stage of a first responder career, like beyond the initial thing, like you're still excited when you get a promotion or you get a new like lateral kind of transfer in your job and it's something you really wanted, but it's like that initial getting into that uniform, getting to that career, it's just like, oh my, like I remember when they called me and told me that I was starting in corrections, and I was just like, oh my God, are you serious? Like I'm going to be responsible for other people. Oh God. Am I old enough to do this? Because I was only 22, right? I was like, am I old enough to do this? And then getting fitted for your uniform the first time and putting your uniform on, like, oh my God, like pride in the uniform. And just like I remember going home, and because like I didn't live with my parents at the time, and they weren't super supportive of my journey. They wanted me to be a lawyer. So they were not very impressed that I was going to work in a jail, as my mom likes to call it, a dirty, disgusting jail. And I was like, well, yeah, it is dirty and disgusting, but I love it. But I remember going home with my uniform and being like, and putting it on and being like, see, and then my parents kind of like looking at me being like, oh, like, yeah, this is a real thing. Like this our kid is in uniform and she's going to go out there and, like be enforce things, like, wow. Right. So yeah, that initial feeling, I agree. There's nothing that can beat that. That's phenomenal. So you get into it and you get stationed where?
So I get stationed, I finished recruit class, which was such a grind and fun. And you're, bonding with these people that you are doing all these hard things with. And we had, I think, 40 people in my recruit class. So once we completed that, graduated together, in City Hall, which we hit the floor as firefighters. And I think I hit the floor in December of 2016? Was it then? I am really bad at remembering numbers and dates. So yeah, don't quote me on that one. But anyway, we graduated, we hit the floor, and my first hall was the Beverly kind of Highlands area. And I remember being really excited to go to this particular station because of the location. Like there's a good mix of like housing, medical aid responses that we would go to, and a good potential for structure fires. So I was really excited to be at that hall. And my crew was fabulous. To start my career with Edmonton Fire, I can't imagine like a better one. Like it was like, I feel like they were handpicked. Yeah, so I think that the captain is since retired, Captain Mead, and everybody else. You typically you stay at a station between 3 and 5 years, 2 to 4 years. First hall you do essentially kind of 2 to 4 months there, and then they transfer you to a different station where you kind of live the duration of your probationary year, and then like maybe an additional 3 or 2 years, whatever they decide on kind of person power, the department. So my first station was Station 7, and then after my first 4 months there, I was transferred to Station 1, which is right downtown across from the police headquarters. Be nervous to go downtown just because I knew that it was really busy. You're moving crews, you have to bond with new people again.
And so when you're going into the station, like, are they, because like usually in law enforcement, we have like a field training officer program. So you hit the floor, but you're kind of paired up with a senior officer. And so like in corrections, we have like an actual booklet. There's phase 1 and phase 2, and you have to have completed like these things, and your field training officer has to sign off on them saying like, yes, I've seen you do a cell search, or yes, I've seen you do a strip search, or yes, I've seen you do charges, like certain documentation when we have incidents in the jail, like, and that you're doing it to standard. So is there anything like that in fire where they would pair you up with like a specific person, or is it just kind of like you're on the crew and everybody's kind of keeping an eye out on you, and then it's kind of more like informal, like, hey, next time you do it, like try doing it like this feedback?
Yeah, so there is kind of like like a formal like rank and structure within the fire service. As a probationary firefighter, you're going to chain of command, right? So you go into your station, and typically, you introduce yourself to everyone, but the main go-to person that you have if you have questions is your junior person on that crew. So you would go to them first, and they will hopefully take you under their wing and what's expected of you when you hit the floor. When I hit the floor, the tradition was to make your crew breakfast. So before I hit the floor and started working my first shift, I called the station and I said, hey, I'm going to be your new probationary firefighter. I'd like to make you breakfast. And then you kind of get to know the people on your crew. So I called them and hung out with them for the day, made breakfast, and first day shift, with the expectation that I would defer to my junior person. And then throughout your probationary year, you have modules that your captains will sign off on. So you have to teach of what we're expected to know. So if it's a medical aid module or, forcible entry, we would teach that to our crews. So that's kind of how we navigate some of the learning that we do on the floor, and others,
that's like, I've never thought of it that way, in like, because I was the field training officer coordinator for a while when I was a manager. I really like that idea, because the best way to learn something is to have to teach it to somebody else, right? Because then you're not just learning it, memorizing it, like, yeah, I'm just going to file this away for like, yeah, I passed the test, I've got to memorize. Like, if you have to teach it to somebody else, you better know your shit inside and out, because the last thing you want is for somebody to ask you a question and you're at the front being like, I don't know the answer shit when I'm trying to teach this stuff. So that's a really great way to like, not only like have it ingrained in you, you're never going to forget that information because you taught it, but also to show that you know it inside and out because you're teaching it to somebody. So that's a really neat way to do that. I think that's really cool.
Yeah. And it's like such a great opportunity for the crew to come together too and just have this learning moment. So like the neat thing about coming out kind of the most updated way of doing a certain thing. Mm-hmm. So you might be able to be the person that kind of gives that knowledge to your crew that might be more senior than you are and hasn't heard about this like specific technique yet. or like your crew might be so senior, it's like even better to like force a door open. So it's just a way of like knowledge sharing that I think is really amazing. And it gives the people on your crew too that are more senior, that might not have put their hands on a certain tool or something in a really long time, the opportunity to pretty wholesome way of just kind of getting out on the bay floor, working through some problems together as a team, that benefits everyone.
Yes. Very cool. So you spent 4 months at Station 7 with the best crew in the world, and then they moved you downtown to the hot section of the city, which is just, I always used to say, like, because Reman was right around the corner from Station 1, right? And so old Reman. And so, yeah, you'd see them go out, and I always would think to myself, like, driving in downtown in a fire truck has got to be the most frustrating like thing in the entire world, because like, yeah, there's like idiot drivers that just are clueless and are not paying attention to lights and sirens, but then there's also just like literally no place for them to go. There is no, like, you want them to drive up on the sidewalk because there's no place when it's rush hour. There's no place for them to go. Like if you're going down 104th, like there's nowhere to go to get out of the way, right? So I always used to think like I would not, no, thank you. I have enough road rage as it is. Don't put me in a fire truck and make me try and respond to an emergency during rush hour. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it is pretty challenging. And the neat thing though about how we do our driver training is that typically you're going to be like 3 or 4-ish, maybe 5 years before you get to operate a pump. But I was at Station 1, I think, for 4.5 years. So I hit that kind of mark to get my driver training and drive downtown. And I think as a probationary firefighter, to get that experience, the reps, the calls, was such an incredible opportunity. I thank my lucky stars for that so much, because I feel like it gave me a lot of confidence in my ability as, a firefighter to do these things, like challenging to navigate all of the traffic downtown, like the bike lanes, all of the pedestrians, like you name it. You're going to be looking for it when you're driving. Like probably one of the most on times at all for sure is, driving your crew.
The one ways too, right? The one ways like, oh, this is the best way to get to this. Like in one of our first episodes in season 1 with Sheila Farrell, she's a paramedic. And she said, like one of the things that she has a piece of advice for somebody was, know your neighborhood, like know your, where you're going to be responding, because sometimes there's construction. And if you've only ever gone there one way and you don't know that there's another way, she's like, those are valuable seconds that are being delayed on your response because you're sitting there going, oh my God. And Google Maps is not always accurate, right? And it's not always, the fastest way to be looking at Google Maps while you're trying to respond. And so she said, knowing your neighborhood, knowing the ways to get around one ways or to get around, if there is an accident or things like that is invaluable as a first responder. And I was like, I didn't even think about that as, somebody that we don't respond in vehicles, right? So I was like, holy, that's totally true, right?
Yeah, 100%.
So what are you doing now? Because I feel like your role has kind of shifted. You were at Station 1 for 4.5 years on the floor, on the trucks, and now you've kind of shifted to a different kind of role. Am I right?
Yeah, but before I move on to that, I do also just want to note that when I moved to Station 1, the crew that I had there was also incredible. And I think it's one of those things like in the fire, nervous to go to the next crew and you're like, oh, but I just made a family here. But then you go to your new crew and then it becomes your family again. And it's always like the same like vicious cycle where you worry and you're like, oh, I don't want to move. And then you go to your new home and then it's the same thing. And you're like, oh, it's just an awesome. Like, what was I even worried about? And I think everyone experiences that. So.
Yeah, it's the same with us too, because when they would do a shift shuffle, and so we have A, B, and C shifts, and so again, it becomes your family. Those are your partners, those are your people, those are the supervisors you understand or the managers that you like. And then when you become the managers, you have the supervisors that you like and you have the staff you liked, and you've kind of handpicked your shift and made it the way you want it, and it's running the way you want it. And then upstairs would always come down and be like, so we're gonna do a shift shuffle, and you'd be like, God, no, like no. And then of course, and inevitably, so they would tell the managers in the morning meeting, and then we would be like, and they'd be like, don't say anything. And obviously somebody would go and run their mouth. And so then like wildfire, it would be like throughout the whole jail, shift shuffle, shift shuffle, shift. And then you'd get people calling and emailing and please don't move me, please. And you're just like, oh my God. But it's that like that stress, right? And as a frontline officer, okay, well, what unit am I going to? What shift am I going to? Who's going to be my supervisor? As a manager, it was like, Oh my God, you're gonna move me to a different shift and I have to start all over again. Like I just got this shift running the way I want it to run. People understand my expectations. They know, and then you move over and like you said, it's oh, okay. After the initial kind of hiccup phases, and sometimes you run into a little bit of problems, but after you get over that, first month and a half, it's like, oh, it's just the same shit. It's just a different shift. Like it's literally the same thing.
Yeah.
Like, the problem childs are the problem childs.
Yeah. I think it must come from just like that kind of teamwork atmosphere that we all kind of work together, and that you're going to have to handle stressful situations out there in the wild. So like you don't have that jive yet. You don't know how you flow and like who, can fill in the gaps where. And like, I think once you build that and establish that with a crew, it's tough to get, then again, resort that and navigate that with other individuals. Cause, finding everybody's strengths and weaknesses and all that stuff. But it also feels good. Like it's so rewarding when all those pieces come together and you're on scene and things are flowing. Like there's, just such an incredible feeling.
So do they do like a big shuffle? Like if they like, is it just like one or two people will shuffle, as their probationary time comes up, or, oh, this person's going because now they're going to be an acting captain, or this, or is it like, hey, every 6 months, we're going to take 4 people from each station and just move them around? Like, do they do that?
It's so like probationary firefighters, a little bit of shuffle there for acting captains, some movement on circles there. And then there's some kind of bigger shape ups. I actually don't know how they establish that. I think it's through retirements and like who has to move, higher paid people.
Yes. I love it. Well, I'm glad you got in your plug for station one and your shift, because that it is sometimes, because then somebody will be listening, they'll be like, what? She didn't say she loved us. Damn it.
I loved those crews. Like I can think of like so many smiles come to my face when I imagine the guys that I've worked with, and the captains that have retired from Station 7, but then there was Captain Kelly and Captain Duell, who are now both retired. And when I think of them, it gives me such great pride to have worked alongside them. Like they're such great captains. And whenever I heard their voice, things were going to go well. It's hard to explain, but I just loved hearing their voices on the radio. They're the way that they ran their calls, and their sense of professionalism, and we'll hope to like have some ounce of their abilities when I'm a captain one day.
I was just about to say, that's exactly it. Like filling their shoes when people like that leave, it's like very kind of unnerving, because you're like, no, you were really good at that, and I really liked hearing your voice on the radio or having you give me direction and tell me what needs to be done. Because then all of a sudden it's like, then you are them, and you're like, no. It's like I equate this to, no, I'm not an adult enough, I need another adult. I like when somebody's looking for, I need somebody more adultier than me, where are they? And they're like, no, that's you now. And I'm like, no, for me it was Ken was one of my mentors. And I was like, I would always look for him and be like, what am I supposed to do? And he was like, again, just a voice of calm, a voice of reason. He was always like, nothing really rattled him. And he just, he was super professional. And so, anything, I'd be like, okay, when I'd hear him like come down the hall and be giving, I'm like, okay, good. We're in good hands now. Like, great, fantastic, right? I totally get that.
When you really, resonate with captains who are just super calm and over the radio, that it just means something.
For sure. So you do your station one stuff, great crew, loving your life there. So what was the change? Because technically you would have been kind of at station one for a little bit longer if you hadn't moved into this role that you're taking on now.
Yeah, so kind of what happened was I was originally seconded from Station 1. So they pulled me off the floor of Camp Inspire, which is a camp for women and gender diverse folks. So I did that for a few months, and then I was sent back to the floor for a few shifts after my secondment ended. So we ran, I think it was two camps in the spring and then the fall, and that was the first camp that we ever did. And then I went back to the floor, and then I was transferred to Station 11, which is in Capilano. Then it was COVID times because there was 3. This is going to be the 4th camp. So I started in this role. So these positions that I'm in right now didn't exist at that time. So there's 4 outreach and recruitment liaison positions that exist within Edmonton. They're temporary positions. The person in those roles can do it for like 2 years, and then they go back to work as a firefighter. So I started this role in August 29th in this kind of temporary position.
Very cool. So are you like, when you did it the first time, so you basically, they pulled you off and said, hey, we have this project, we have this thing that we want to do, Camp Inspire? Or was it like, create it and run with it? Or was it like, we already have this project in place, we just need somebody to come in and essentially facilitate it and organize it for this secondment?
Yeah, a little bit of both. So I think they had done a lot of research and planning to see what it will look like. I think they even had a few names selected, but as I was navigating the documents, I felt like, there could be more development and growth as a result of like what they've learned already. And there's a lot of fire departments that run camps for women, primarily younger women. So like the difference between Camp Inspire and a lot of the camps that are out there right now is it's for women who are over the age of 18. It also includes gender diverse folks. I think a lot of camps don't specifically add that notation, but that's one of the things that we did. And they just needed, someone to create like even the application questions, how the applicant would in an inclusive way to write even the write-up for Camp Inspire, or the rubric, how we would grade the written application form. And then also building community connections within admin. How are we reaching the women and people from the gender diverse community and meeting their specific needs within this camp? Because I'm only one person. I can speak to like my experience, but obviously there's, in our own communities, right? And to kind of understand where the barriers are, what the challenges are. Obviously, I can't like meet all of them, but it's definitely something that we've tried to incorporate in the Camp Inspire model. So like, even like simple things, if it's something that a participant needs, like I will do my best to find that for them. All of the food, snacks, water, everything is provided. So they don't have to think about that when they come participate for the Friday evening, Saturday, Sunday, all day. Swag, everything, they get like t-shirts, shorts, sweatshirts, everything that they're going to be wearing, PPE is all provided. They don't have to pay anything. They can just come and like actually experience it, and any other stress that comes with paying for an experience.
Yeah. So tell me about Camp Inspire, because now I am literally, pun intended, inspired and want to come to Camp Inspire because I want to try this stuff because it sounds super cool. Although I know that any enclosed spaces, I will panic and freak out and be like, I'm out, I'm done. But this sounds awesome because so it's a camp for 18 plus female and gender diverse individuals who are basically looking to see what it's like to be a firefighter. Is that kind of what this Camp Inspire is about?
Yeah. And I think like even more broadly, like I think if you have a curiosity even about the career itself, would I love you to go into the fire service? Yes. But like, maybe it's something that you think is going to develop your self-confidence or your leadership skills. You're also obviously welcome at Camp Inspire. Primarily, it's used for folks who are interested in the service, and they have an opportunity to not only like experience firefighting, so they're going to have their own set of bunker gear for the weekend. They're going to fight a car fire. They're going to go and learn forcible entry. They're going to go through the claustrophobia prop. They're going to get to rappel down our training facility building. They get to meet members of our fire prevention team. So the fire prevention team talks about their careers. Dispatch will talk about their careers and experience, not only just with firefighting, but other facets of our service as well. And then it's also an opportunity for them to come together and network and then be that support network. So like to kind of bring it full circle to like that really long, exhausting recruitment process. Now you have a team of individuals that are like-minded, who have the same career path, that you can support each other, kind of check in with each other, cheer each other on. Same, I think, is really powerful. And, I think another thing that I really love about Camp Inspire is when I got on with Edmonton, I think one of the first women that was hired in 12 years. I think there was 8 other women. So I think I was number 9. And I was hoping to hear from some of those women. Not that I feel like I fault them for not, reaching out, but I do remember, because of Camp Inspire, because we bring the women in, different shifts, right? So like even working with another woman is super hard because there's so many stations and there's so many shifts. So like navigating that is really tough. And because of the seniority difference, this rookie firefighter, when I got on to like a lot of the captains or even chiefs who were women at the time, there's, it's just, you want to respect them and give them their space as well. Like you don't want to go to a chief and say, hey, can I give you a hug? One of the like, I think magical things that also have stemmed out of Camp Inspire for me specifically is just that because we bring some of the women to have that moment of connection and we can come together and see each other, and connect, catch up on our lives and just be, which is really nice. So it's like this thing that, is supposed to be an amazing recruitment tool, but also our department for our women to kind of be a support network for each other, which is really awesome.
That is super cool. Super, super cool. Because like you said, it is time in the career to get together. That's one that we have a corrections hockey tournament, and we just a couple of years ago put together a women's only hockey team, and we love it. It's our weekend where we just get to hang out, and we hang out in the change room, and it's girls from all different shifts, and you're playing hockey together. We're not very good. We don't care. We have fun, right? Like it's just about getting together, hanging out, being able to talk, like you said, talk through those experiences that you have and just kind of spend time together. So yeah, I really enjoy that. I think that's an awesome thing because it's dual purpose then, right? You're not only recruiting new people to the career, but you're also getting time with those people that you don't get to spend time with, which is just fantastic. So how do we get into Camp Inspire? How do I get into this? Because I'm down. I want to do this.
Awesome. So applications will open up in July, I think mid-July, and then after about 2.5 weeks, and then they will close. Then there'll be a selection period, and then you should hear in August whether or not you've made it. So their first Camp Inspire, we had about 300 applicants, and we can only take 20 participants. But so there's a written application you fill out, and then you fill out your sizing for your PPE and clothes and all that stuff. And then that's taken through a selection process. And then the camp itself this year is September 15th, 16th, and 17th. And then if you follow Edmonton Fire Rescue Services Facebook page or Instagram account, you can find updates about when that application period will go live. And I'm sure there'll be some sort of like press release too about that like specific date. Just get to do so many fun things. I mean, first of all, you get your PPE, like your bunker gear, you put that on. There's some SCBA familiarization. You're going to learn how to go on air. You're going to learn about our trucks and the capabilities, like go through wire entanglement, wall breach, a simulated car fire attack, confined spaces, rappelling down the building, which I particularly love. And just regular discussions about fire hall life, and then kind of our application process. So it's kind of a good all around feel of just what it would feel like to be in the service. So it's a small little taste and great experience for everyone. I mean, I think going through the recruitment process, you don't get any extra bonus points for like Camp Inspire. Like there's like the misconception, I think, with some folks that if you join Camp Inspire, you're going to get hired right away. It just provides you like an opportunity, or maybe in your interview, or just kind of give you that background knowledge about our recruitment process, or even if this is the career for you. And then also network with a lot of rescue services, like other folks that work. So there's not just women there. There's a few men that help out with like certain scenarios. And the women and gender diverse folks can have an opportunity to network with them too, if they feel. So like there's just, I think, a lot of opportunity to build, like find someone that you will connect with that might give you that extra push or that set of information that, someone like me probably could have benefited from. Might have not taken me so many tries to get on.
That's so funny.
So I think
I do like that networking too, because that I find is one thing I like throughout my career that has really helped me is it's not necessarily what you know, it's who you know, and not in a nepotistic way, but more in I need help with this, or I don't know this information, but I know this person that does know this information, or I know this person who knows somebody that knows this information. So I'm going to reach out and I'm going to network with this person, and just keeping them. And then also having those networks when things get tough, or when, there is a challenge, like, okay, we're in the recruitment process and, I failed out on the aptitude test. Well, what did you study? Oh, well, I studied this. Oh, well, okay, next time I'm going to study that. Right. Like, so there is that networking part of things that I think is really key. And then just making lifelong friends. Like, I mean, when working in a first responder career, or you're going through something that can be as stressful and hard as recruit training, or maybe even this Camp Inspire for some people that's really pushing them out of their comfort zone, right? Of doing these hard things. Maybe if it's heights that scare you, rappelling off the side of the building is not the best thing. You're not loving that piece, right? But you're building these friends and these connections in these camps or in your recruit classes that they're going to be there for forever. Like after leaving corrections, I mean, those people are still lifelong friends. If I run into them on the street, or, we end up at, like, again, the hockey tournament together, it's like we've never left, and we're right back into, that really deep connection relationship, which is awesome. And you need that especially in a first responder career, is to have those connections with the people that you're going to work with, or have those connections with people that are going to support you as you move throughout that journey. So I think that's fantastic. Just great work on Camp Inspire. And I love that you're heading it up. I think just having, again, chatted with you and hearing the passion in your voice and hearing your excitement for it, and just seeing, again, your pictures, when I see your pictures on Instagram, the smile on your face when you're with these people and when you're going into schools and you're doing this outreach work, like, you absolutely love this part of your job. And so that makes me so happy too, because some people get into these jobs, into these outreach jobs as kind of like on my way out, I'm going to, do this as an easy last couple of years before retirement, or I'm going to do this as I need a break from being on the front lines, and they don't really pour their heart and soul into it. And you can tell that you totally do, which I think is freaking amazing. So good for you. Well done.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. But like, I do feel like an incredible sense of the importance of representation, because in my own story, like, I wouldn't have found this job if it wasn't for Julie. Like, seeing her in uniform, that's what it took. Like, I could identify with her immediately. Like, I couldn't identify with that, like, male coach. Then that's the only time that I could believe that I could do it. And I think representation to me is huge, and I will stand on that soapbox forever. So when I'm out in the community and I meet, other women that are curious, I want to give that to them, because I know how rewarding it can be. And like, you speak of relationships within the hall life, like, that's one of the things that I love about our job, is like how strong those family connections are. And how fun they can be. Who drives to work and smiles, like, looking forward to, like, connecting with your teammates again, what they did on their time off, like, if they got the car they wanted, or whatever, like, what their kid is doing.
Yeah, that's exactly right. When you have that connection with the people that you work with, it's amazing. When you detest the people that you work with, that could also be a super challenge. But it sounds like Edmonton Fire is really good, and you guys don't really have those issues of.
The crews that I worked with have just been, phenomenal set of folks, and I love them all to bits. So
that's awesome.
I think you should apply though, Nikki.
Oh, dude, I like legit. This sounds freaking amazing. I'm sorry, we get to rappel down the side of a building. We get to do forcible entry, like all of the things, with the exception of the enclosed spaces. Because I know, I don't know if you heard. So I in a previous episode during corrections, we had to do the fire course, because Edmonton Fire won't come in until we've cleared the inmates out of the units. And so we have to have, like, we have a fire team, right? That will, if there's, we call it's a code 88. So if there's a code 88 that goes off, the fire team, we have full bunker gear, we dress, we go in and we extract all the inmates. And so in order to be on the fire team, you have to go to the fire training course at the training academy. And so I was like, okay. And I was, I don't know, maybe like 23, 24. And at the time I was like, maybe Edmonton Fire, like maybe being a firefighter is something I want to do. Like, I'd done all the lifeguard stuff, right? So like putting a CBSA on wasn't scary, because you do chlorine bottle changes, like all that stuff. I was in really good shape, like short, but so I was like, okay, maybe there's gonna be some issues with some of the equipment, but strong. Like, I was like, I feel like I could do this. And so I go to the course, like, and they black out your mask, and they basically send you into like a shack to go, like, basically rescue somebody. And I had never had my mask blacked out before. And so I didn't even have air on. Like, I just had my, like, I could breathe, like I could, but like no, like nothing, just the mask, and it was blacked out. And I did not, until like that exact moment, realize that I was claustrophobic. But I had like the biggest panic ever. I was like freaking the fuck out, went flying out of the back of the house. And I was like, absolutely fucking not. Am I doing this? Like, I was like, absolutely fucking not. And the instructors were good friends of mine. And so they thought I was joking. They're like, Nikki, get the fuck in there. I was like, I am not doing this. Like, and I was like in full panic. And so then when I was talking to fire friends later, the guys were so funny. They're like, so you will not be on the fire team. I was like, yeah, I acknowledge that. And then my fire friends afterwards, when I was telling them, they're like, so like when you go through like recruit training, like you have to crawl through like a pipe that's like the top of your tank is rubbing and your belly is rubbing and you are like crawling through this pipe. And I was like, hard no. I would bust out of that pipe like Hulk, like just like to get out. Like there would be no putting Nikki in a pipe with like no space to move. So yeah, I'll do all of the other things, but that claustrophobia, the enclosed spaces, hard pass on that. No, thank you.
Yeah, that's completely fair. And your body and your brain are only doing what they know. They're trying to protect you. They're like, no, we're not designed to go here. You shouldn't be in this.
Yes, right? Like they're like, no, this is a terrible idea. Let's not do this. Okay, well, I've taken up a lot of your day and I know you have a ton of places to go. So I want to jump into just some quick rapid fire questions for you to wrap up. I love this conversation. I've learned so much about it. It's just unbelievable. But tell me, so when you were on the floor, when you were on the trucks, what was your favorite snack or food to eat? Because we know fire loves their food.
Oh my goodness. This is I think the guys would probably laugh at this. My career, I have gone through phases where like I would only eat certain snacks. Like I hyper focus on certain things.
Yeah.
And I think I had like 2 phases of favorite snacks. One was like rice cakes with peanut butter and drizzled honey on top and bananas. What was the other one? Oh, and then I'd only eat like pumpkin spice oatmeal for breakfast for like many years. Like super weird. But yeah, so very just hyper focused on the fire hall for sure.
That is so funny. You're just like, I'm the pumpkin spice basic bitch over here with my oatmeal though, not the latte. I'm doing the oatmeal.
Yeah, I just put a little pumpkin in there and all the pumpkin spices. It's so good. And some protein powder just for good measure.
Yes, it is. It is true. It is true. The protein powder makes it, because otherwise you're just hungry again in like an hour and you're like, 100%. Oh, now I need to eat again. Damn it.
Yeah. And it is the worst feeling, like being out on a call and you're hungry, but
yes,
the adrenaline takes care of that. But
yeah, your belly's growling and you're like, I will not eat for another 3 hours at least. Damn it.
Yeah. Should have had that pumpkin spice oatmeal in the morning.
Then I would be good. Then I'd be good.
Yeah, then I would be okay.
Okay. And when you're, well, or even now, because I'm sure you get to use some cool pieces of equipment doing this Camp Inspire. What is your favorite piece of equipment to use?
My favorite piece of equipment, probably, you know what? I have kind of an affinity for the New York hook.
Okay. What is this?
6-foot kind of long pole with like 2 hooks at the end. And you kind of use it for pulling down and prying. And I love it. It's a great tool. I love taking it into fires because it just gives you, and it's the perfect length too. You can do a lot with it. It's very versatile. I love that tool.
I feel like you say it's the perfect length because you're 6'1", and I feel like this. I feel like this New York hook and my 5-foot self would not be friends. We would not. I'd be like pole vaulting with this thing.
Yeah, that's an astute observation. I think there's probably something to that for sure. Yeah.
like, if you and I were partners, I'd be like, all right, you are doing the ceiling pulling down because even with this pole, I cannot reach the ceiling.
Yeah, and that's all good.
That's so funny. Okay. And so now this fits in perfectly with the role that you're playing right now. What is a piece of advice that you would give to somebody that is looking to get into firefighting as a career?
There's so many things. Like, number 1, like we said, do your research. Number 2, never give up. And number 3, don't be afraid to be the first. Yeah. And I think you're going to find an incredible team and supporters around you. And if you don't have that, find people that advocate for you and only build on the mistakes that you've made. There's a lot of growth and learning and failure. And I think you're going to be more successful when you just learn from them and you never give up. Just keep going for it. If you have that dream, if you know it in your heart that you want to do this, then go for it.
I love that. That is amazing, because that's exactly right. It's all about, you just have to commit to it. You have to commit to it and you have to stick to it and you have to just do what it takes to get it, because if you doubt yourself, if like again, and we go back to what you said at the very beginning, if you allow those little voices to get to you, or you allow those kind of doubtful glances from even those people that love you, like your parents, right? My parents be like, "Oh my God, what are you doing?" Right? If I'd have let that stop me, I wouldn't be where I was today, right? I wouldn't have the experience that I'd had. I wouldn't have done the things that I've done. And so I think that's exactly right. Just keep going. Don't give up. Do your research. Know what you're stepping into, because that is another part of it. And I find, again, just from my side of things, that's what happens is that people come in woefully underprepared, and then you go, okay, you need to take a step back and realize what you're getting yourself into, and realize the extent of this application process or this recruitment process, right? So being prepared. Absolutely. Absolutely. That's awesome. Well, like I said, this has been phenomenal, Daisy. I have freaking loved chatting with you today. It has been a treat. Thank you for sharing your time with me this morning. Again, I know how busy you are. I know you got a million things you got to do today, but I really appreciate you taking the time. And I think it's going to be you that's going to be at our Female First Responder Day on June 25th. Is that right?
That is correct. I will be there.
Yes. So if you guys want to meet this badass female first responder in person, join us Sunday, June 25th from 12 to 4 at Blue Line, 2121 84th Ave. Daisy will be there to answer all your questions, maybe talk to you about Camp Inspire, maybe get yourself set up for that, which would be super cool. I legit am going to look into this because I think it's definitely something right up my alley. And it's going to be amazing. So thank you again. Thanks for sharing your story. Thanks for sharing your journey. Any last words you want to leave our listeners with?
I just want to thank you, Nikki, for your time. I really appreciate the interview, and to everyone out there listening, commend you all on doing what you're doing.
Well, that's it for today, folks. Thanks so much for tuning in, listening, giving me your time, your energy, and your attention. I completely appreciate it. Make sure you check out our next episode with another badass female first responder anywhere you get your favorite podcasts, and follow us on Instagram and Facebook at bluelinefitnesstesting.com. I hope you stay safe, keep your head on a swivel, and watch your six.